Thank you so much for this opportunity for bringing us here. Uh, what if I told uh, the children and the parent in the audience pool that a career planning is unlike planning your travel, right? It is something similar. How can we plan a career in par with unlike other travel? We will kind of look at in the next 40-45 minutes, right? Uh, Typically today we will go through seeing some of the industry trends as to how the industry is around the work world, followed by the three pillar streams and what are those different kind of career paths within those streams. And after looking at these, how do we make that choice is something that again we would look at how to make those choices, right? This is how the flow will go, and of course followed by Q&A in case you have. The work world is changing. It is very evident to all of us that the work world is changing. At least in the last 10 or 15 years, the work world is being very dynamic. Right from looking at the 21st century careers or the new age careers, one of the examples that I would like to take is, say, an UX designer. A couple of years ago, or at least a decade ago, you have to be an engineer to work in companies like, say, Google or Yahoo or Infosys or Wipro. Today, there are careers which do not need you to be an engineer to pick up a career in these IT companies. UX designer is one such career which, if you are a fine art student, a designing student, you can pick up a career in an IT industry, right? When I'm now moving on to when we call it as skills, way back, when I was in HR, entrepreneurship skills was something that was looked forward from a person who would want to venture into business, right? Venture into an entrepreneurship journey. But that's not the trend any longer. Any organization hiring a talent will first look at what kind of language do they talk in terms of, say, PNL. How does one impact the PNL of their organization? How does they bring efficiency in every work that they do, and which rather translates in the bigger scheme of things to their balance sheet and things like that. To give you an example, being in HR, my job was mostly to hire people, keep them engaged, and then if there is an exit, those are the process. And of course, a large part of it was to engage and train them and develop them for future skills that are required. Whereas after a point, the first 10 years was very different in, if I had to take the next 10 years of my career, right? The next 10 years, I was supposed to show what was the return on investment that I bought by doing those engagement activities. When I'm talking about return on investment, I was supposed to show the return that I did or the business impact that I did being in HR, right? This is why I'm referring to an entrepreneurship skills. Every employee, every individual is supposed to have that skill in this work world. The next one is the new phase of the business. When we are talking about the new phase of the business, today technology has been disrupted everywhere. Right? If you had to take example, say, today Swiggy and Zomato's in this pandemic time are doing extremely, successful. How did that happen? They don't own a single kitchen, but yet they are a food company, right? So how did they get to do that? That's because of the technology disruption that is taking place and the startup boom that is having, right? And worldwide survey, Gallup has done a survey in 2019 with over 150 countries with about 5,000 odd children, and less than one fourth of them are happy in doing what they are doing. Less than one fourth of the people are finding the happiness, or they are finding their ideal job is matching, is less than one fourth of it. right? I would not like to take too much on describing this. I'm sure the survey is available on Google. For more information, you could just go there, probably take a look at it. Engineering was a very well paid job. That is what we all believed, at least, in a couple of years ago or a decade ago. But that's no longer is the truth, right? I remember if a girl is looking, if there is a matrimony that comes, or a boy that comes to look at a girl, first thing they look at is, okay, easy engineering, okay, stabilized job, let's get her to marry and things like that, right? But that's not any longer the great choice of career, because there are other careers which are doing exceptionally good in terms of growth, in terms of package, in terms of their in terms of getting opportunities within India or outside India and things like that. Okay, now let's come to the very important point of what is this random versus planned. When I was referring to, we will talk about a vacation, how a vacation, we plan. That's how your career is also a planning. If you have a little bit of a planning, it's nice to have. When I'm referring to having a little bit of a planning, right? Let's take, you decided to go to a certain place for a vacation. How do we do that? Do we decide on a place first and then pack our bags, or do we pack our bags and then decide on a vacation? Sometimes it's nice to just have a backpack kind of vacation. That's when you're alone, right? You're alone, just taking up for a 2-day trip is nice. But when you have an ecosystem, right? When I'm referring to an ecosystem, when you're planning a vacation with the family, where the family comprises of your grandparents, your parents, and say your siblings, right? These are three different age group of people in the vacation planning, and each one enjoys a different thing. So while we are planning this trip, you ideally do it in terms of, okay, this is what my grandparents like, this is what my parents like, this is how I will travel, this is my itinerary for the next 4 or 5 days that I'm going to travel. It's nice to have that kind of a planning. That's because there is an ecosystem around you, right? When you have an ecosystem, it's nice to have certain amount of planning. However, there are certain things, small things would change here and there, right? Everything the way you planned, 90% would go the way you planned, but 10% here and there things will change. That's exactly is a career also. In a given scenario of industry being so dynamic, economy being so vastly changing in the pace that they are changing, right? It's important to have a foundation planning, right? When you have a foundation planning, it makes it easy. When you have some changes that takes at the rapid pace, right? What is that foundation is something that we're going to see in our next upcoming slides, right? We saw the industry trends that are happening, right? Next, we will see the stream selection under the three pillars of science, commerce, and humanities or arts, whatever you call it. We would look at what are those different things within the stream selection process that are the different career paths within these three pillars is something that we are going to take a closer look, so that as you go forward, you got to get to that micro level of decision making, right now. I'm sure whoever is in your 10th grade, next year you got to make that micro level decision in terms of whether I'm going to take up a pure science or applied science if I'm interested in science, or I'm going to take up some commerce, which is the legal and compliance kind of studies, or is it management, or is it economics, or humanities, is it the that kind of careers, or the legal and public policy, or economics. They're huge, right? They're a huge ocean of things that you got to dabble around and pick it up, right? So let's give a little more closer look to each of these streams so that your selection process gets a little easier. I understand, making this choice is not an easy choice at all, both for parents and children, right? Being aware of the difficulties that each of us will face at this phase. Let's dive into some careers around humanities and arts, right? Talking about design and visual arts, right? Design and visual arts are careers around design, right? It's the under there are careers in terms of bachelor's and master's. So we talked about in the beginning of my presentation we talked about UX designer, right? UX designer is a non-science degree, like I mentioned, and yet you can have a career, not just in non-IT, even in the IT sector, right? That is how different, or that is how careers have evolved because of technology disruption. Of course, I'm going to talk about little more on technology disruption as we go forward, but right now let's just keep it at that. Now, there's again a bigger space or a big chunk of psychology. I'm sure all of you are hearing ever since the pandemic has started. All of you must be talking about uh, mental health. A lot of you are seeing some of the celebrities are committing suicide and things like that, right? That's because we are not paying attention to our mental health, and psychology is one such vast space where human touch is required, right? When I'm talking about human touch, the second thing all of you must be thinking, AI is going to come, machine learning is going to come, robotics is going to come. With all of these coming, where does psychology stand, or where does visual art stand, right? Visual art or design careers are highly creative intense, right? It requires a lot of creativity. So that can never be taken away from, say, artificial intelligence or robotics, right? Psychology, a lot of human touch is needed, right? Irrespective of any amount of AI coming into play, that human touch is the key to the space of work, right? So it is here to stay. And what is here to stay? Those key elements are here to stay. But if you say there are a lot many monotonous, regular admin kind of jobs will definitely be taken away from AI and robotics, right? So we need to learn to navigate to do a lot more impactful work as human beings, right? Hospitality, I would not like to dive it too much because most of you are, get to see them day in, day out. Now, let me touch upon a little bit on education and sports, right? A large part of we parents, including me, right? When our children say, I want to make a career in sports, there's a huge amount of fear that is around us saying, out of 100 people, only 5% can make it to top. There is no space for mediocres. Yes, given that understanding, we need to get to a little.
My apologies, Vijaya. If you can just switch off your camera, I think there is a bandwidth issue.
Playing on the ground. Sure. When I'm referring to, okay. When I'm referring to, a 5%, my child couldn't make it to that 5% of a sportsmanship who plays on the ground, right? But please remember, there is a 95% of the fraternity is behind a particular game, right? Way back in 2008, if you had to look at, IPL came in that time, right? When with one particular, say, a game, which is cricket, or which one particular series, which is IPL, there were about 600 to 700 unique jobs that were created, right? That included sports management, event management, sports marketing, sports fitness, sports physiotherapy. These are all various different careers that are there in the sports fraternity. In case if your child is interested around the sports, please encourage them. If they make it to the ground, great, nothing like it. But if they can't make it, there are multiple careers that are there behind the fraternity, behind the screen, right? Now, coming back to performing arts, which is again a lesser known field, or the stream normally children choose, is the performing arts, right? When we talk about children becoming musicians or singers or choreographers, uh, we don't normally give too much of importance saying you may not be able to make it, right? It's okay, if your child is somebody who has an hobby, please nurture that hobby. You never know, down the line, 5 years, 10 years, your child being a psychologist, he or she might pick up music as a therapy. Psychology can be clubbed with music, psychology can be clubbed with singing, dance. A hobby, how a child can use it for their future, you would never know. So any kind of a hobby that your child shows, please encourage that hobby. Right, marketing, I'm sure these are commonly known careers, so I will move on to the next stream, that is commerce. Commerce is seen in everywhere in our day-to-day lives, all right? Accounting and compliance, maybe a large part of accounting and compliance, AI will take it over. But there are many, within that accounting and compliance, there are very human interfaced kind of work that will still be left. And like I mentioned previously, we need to now look at what kind of an impactful work that we will do around this space, right? Audit and taxation, yes, of course, audit and taxation. There is a large part of which is theory based, which is the tool based, right? So those kind of things will be taken over uh, by AI. But however, when it comes to uh, taking a closer look at the accounting system, right, will still continue to be there. Now, I would like to take a closer look at one of the careers, which is the actuary science. What is actuary science? Actuary science a is a profession which will calculate what is the kind of insurance premium that one needs to pay, be it at the personal level or be it at the organization level or at various different levels, right? Now, during this pandemic situation, there was no insurance which takes care of these kind of pandemic health issues. But right, tomorrow, if an actuary has to sit back and do that calculation, an actuary is a person who will consider all forms of risk and then calculates what is the premium that needs to be paid for buying that particular insurance, right? And India still has certified actuaries in 3-digit numbers only, but the industry's requirement is huge. So there is a lot of scope for actuary science, especially in banking and insurance industry. uh, Entrepreneurship, today if you see, it is a startup boom in India. Like management careers, all of you would be aware here and there, but entrepreneurship is something that I want to kind of stress a little more. uh, a large part of today's children need to look at their college campuses as you go forward, maybe 2 years, or maybe in 10th, in 2 years you'll finish your 12th and get to the college campus, and some of you would get in a less than a year. So look at your college campus as a training ground. Please come up with the possible possible business thoughts and use your campus to try out the best possible ideas that comes into your head. Entrepreneurship is one such journey that if you start from today, you will get to greater heights over a course. And worldwide, uh, people are government is encouraging, and all private sectors, their mentors, their coaches who are investing heavily on entrepreneurship journey that the teenagers and the adults are today students that are coming up and taking it up, right? And the last one is the public sector roles, right? There are huge number of departments which in which there are many public sector jobs. And one of the supply chain is one of those areas. In the pandemic, how many of you found empty supermarkets, right? When you find your supermarket racks are empty, that means the supply chain management is somewhere working. Maybe it is slowed down because of pandemic, but supply chain is one industry where it has to continuously work. That is when the supplies, whether it is essentials or something else, will have the continuous movement. Supply chain is one of those industries which are booming, and whether it is during pandemic or no pandemic, that is one industry which is kind of evergreen. Now let's come into the science stream, right? Which is age-old, uh, age-old stream, or the conventional stream that all of us knew for many years, or all of us know for many years. And this is a stream with a combination of PCM. So that means any engineering degree or any engineering stream that one wants to pick up, it will be with math, right? So there are mechanical, electrical and electronics, chemical, computer science, civil and architecture. I would like to pick up something that are very key, so that rest of it, as we go, in case you have questions, I can answer. uh, let's look at automobile, right? Automobile is a very common engineering degree that we have seen for many years. Okay, automobile, it's an engineering, and engineering degree in automobile is what, unlike most of you study, and which is a very mechanical based structure, right? But that's not the trend any longer, right? As much as an automobile engineer is a very mechanical driven, that is only 60%. Now, you are supposed to learn coding, and your job as an automobile engineering, at least 40% is a coding job, right? That's because most of our cars are today automated. And today, if your car is locked, you cannot call a key mechanic guy to open your lock, right? You got to call an engineer from the company where he works on the code that is already written at the back end to open your car door, right? That's how different industries are working today. That is how technology has disrupted in all phase of our life, right? Whether it is a mechanical engineer, or it is an marine, or a audio or a sound engineer, or it is an electronics engineer. How many of us know that half of our half of our TV, which day in day out that we use, is half the time it is coded, right? 50% or at least 40% of the job in our TV is done by a computer science engineer. Does it mean he's a computer science? No. As electronics, you would have learned coding, right? That is how most part of our work works. Okay, and we have under chemical, we have something called material science, right? What is material science? What is the job of a material science? It's the study of material atomic structure and definitely a lot of physical properties around it, right? So that's what the material science engineering student will study. Now let's talk about a large part of whether it is pandemic, no pandemic, our IT industry is functioning the way they were functioning, right? We see robotics and AI everywhere in our day-to-day life spoken about, right? Uh, there are courses which are specific to robotics and AI right now, but they are available in the premium or tier one colleges like IITs and NITs. You might not find these courses very commonly, but in a case where you can't find these courses at your UG level, the best way to navigate is through your computer science or BE or BTech in computer science, followed by during your masters you can pick up AI and robotics course, right? That is something. At masters there are a lot many courses compared to robotics at the UG level, right? And along with that, when you do your BE BTech in computer science, there are also other opportunities like cyber security, ethical hackers, which is huge today. And of course there are database administrator, whereas there is huge amount of data at the back end, right? When we are talking about everything going automated, that means that much amount of data is collecting at the back end, right? You need somebody to manage that. So that is where the data administrators come into play, and then there's a lot of support. Then a lot many support function along with that, right? So all of these are part of the computer science fraternity. And of course the civil and architecture. So civil comprises geotechnical, right? I would like to talk about slightly around the geotechnical, if some of you are not aware. It's the study of earth and its material, right? When I'm referring to earth and its material is, say, your sand, your rock, the clay, snow. It's a study of all that, right? That is geotechnical. And there's hydraulics and irrigation. Hydraulics is again the study of flow of fluids around, say, groundwater, a sewage treatment plant, water treatment plant. What kind of, say, suppose you want to build a tunnel, what kind of system that one can have, what kind of technical ability that you want to bring. That is about hydraulics and things like that, right? Architecture is a very well known stream. So architecture, again, the moment it is architecture and design, today the courses are also different. Unlike 5 years ago, if you are to take it, if you're studying architecture, that means you can only design a building kind of a structure, right? Build dams, roads and things like that. But today it is different. The moment it is a design degree, right? You will have an option to design not just buildings and dams and roads. You will also have the opportunity to see through how does a ceramic design work, how does a town planning design work, right? There are courses which will give you a dual specialization. There are universities which gives you, say, I can study 2 years, go back, work for a year, and then come back again, study the next 2 years. Various different kind of opportunities are given so that there is a lot more exposure in the industry, right? Now look at medical science, right? Medical science, a very conventional, uh, age-old careers. Under the segment of PCB, biology plays a very important role here in the medical science space. So typically the medical science space has medicine, which is the doctor's fraternity. and the allied health. Allied health are the backbone or the back end of the medical industry space or the medical science space, right? When I'm referring to medicine, it's typically the doctors, the dentists at the UG level, and their surgeons at the PG level, and there are veterinarians, Ayurvedic doctors, and there are nutritionists, and around the allied health, there are speech therapists, audiologists, radiotherapists, and a lot of paramedic team, and of course the nurses fraternity. Then the next pillar is the pure science, which is highly dominated with biology, right? Uh, say I would like to pick up some of these, which are say animal scientist, right? What is animal scientist? What is the role of an animal scientist? Engineer or animal scientist degree, right? It is purely the BSc kind of UG that you're going to pick up here. It is about uh, study of the domestic animals, where there is a lot of livestock that we breed for our day-to-day purposes, right? It talks about the genetics part of it, the nutrition part of it, the reproduction, various diseases associated with it. So, how do you efficiently increase the production of our livestock? Is what the animal scientist typically does, right? Another one that I would like to maybe pick up is say uh, environmental scientist. What does an environmental scientist do? An environmental scientist is somebody who will research around the problems or the pollution that we have, right? It can be air, it can be water, all of those, right? So they are people who will research as to what is the pollution rate and how to decrease that. Those are all some things that an environmental scientist does, right? In the engineering, you must have seen environmental engineering. That is an engineering degree, right? If you are seeing in PCB environmental scientist, these are two different roles, right? Please do not get confused between the same verbiages. Then there is a management pillar within the medical science, right? Uh, you have a child, who did is UG or MBBS, but right now does not like to continue, say, in being a full-fledged practicing doctor, right? There are careers which talks about, say, medical service manager. Medical service manager is somebody who will bring uh, various different new machines, new research, new technology, and best practices which are going on worldwide to a particular hospital, right? It is he or she will introduce it to the hospital, to the doctors, to make sure that there is an updated technology that is available, made available to the medical science fraternity in that hospital. That's a role of a medical services manager, which was not existing, if you have to take out maybe 5-10 years ago. But these are some newer careers or newer career paths that have come due to the technology disruption that we have, right? Now let's look at the PCMB based careers, right, which are mathematics and biology are both are a mandatory field, right? Pure science. Uh, then there are careers around, say, transport and forces. Forces we are referring to Air Force and Army, Defense, those kind of, right. Transport is typically your uh, airline industry. So if you want to become, say, an air traffic controller, it's a PCMB career. If you want to become, say, a commercial pilot, right, or a pilot, a pilot in the Air Force, or in the Air Force, then you need to have a PCMB, uh, you know, as your choice that you got to make. and of course biology related. If you look at bioinformatics or biochemical, uh, both are biology and mathematic intense careers, right? These are all some careers which are with math and biology. Now we have lastly the stream agnostic careers, right? Which is, say, I am a CA, I want to study law, or I want to continue being in the law. Yes, you can make a career being a CA in law, right? And I love mathematics. I love, I've already studied, uh, say, I've already studied engineering, or I've already studied, say, commerce. In commerce, I've done my MBA, but I like maths and statistics. There is a scope for analytics. Analytics is huge scope today, both in India and abroad, right? Likewise, the UPSC. UPSC is IAS, IPS, and IFS officers, irrespective of which degree that you are into, right? You can pick up careers in these areas of work or career paths. Right? Till now, we looked at these three different pillars. Under those three different pillars, there are careers with math, there are careers without math, there are careers with biology, there are careers without biology, and there are careers which are uh, economics driven. There are careers which are just psychology driven. How do I make these how do I pick in the ocean of things that we just looked at right now? How do I pick that one path for myself? Right? That's the biggest question I'm sure all of you would have in your heads. Yes, we saw industry strengths, we saw careers. Now, how do I pick something that is important for me? How do I identify what is that is great, that if I pick, I'll make a successful career, right? Typically, how did we all think many years ago, right? If I and you in our days, how did we make our choices? I picked up, okay, engineering. How many streams are there in engineering, right? In India. If you are okay, then please put up your responses on the chat window. I would like to take a look at that. Arun, can you help me with the responses if people are responding? How many streams are there in engineering?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
I'm asking the audience pool to help me answer. How many streams are there in engineering?
Okay, so 3, 9, 5,000.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there's an ocean of responses.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
sense,
The number.
both in terms of so right from subjectives of many to a vague 5,000.
Yeah.
That's the range that's on your way.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So in India, there are 33 streams. And of course, if you go abroad, there are many, many more. But in India, right now, there are 33 streams. So typically, what we do, we pick up one of these streams and then say, my kid has the skills and abilities, or is looking at his percentage, he can crack, crack JE, he can crack Manipal, or he can crack the state board CET. We decide what is our child's intellectual capability and then say, okay, beta, you pick up VIT. or pick up the state board CET, or pick up JE Advanced. You should go to IIT. So these are some choices that we parents could make, and then put our child to a coaching center to get coached for that entrance exam, right? These are some of the things that we considered before making a career choice, right? With that, I would like to tell you, this is this is uh, this is just the one part of thinking through that you're doing. There's not many more, or there are couple more thoughts that you got to put together before making this choice for your child, right? What is that multi-dimensional approach is something that we would like to bring it to you. How do you make an ideal choice of a career? First of all, you need to look at the personality of your child, right? What is my child personality looking like? Is he or she somebody who will look at facts, or he or she is an imaginative person, right? Or is he a real and tangible data person? Does he look to make tangible data for making his decisions, or he or she is open to look at future possibilities, right? What kind of person is my child? E, are they talkative? In the sense, is my child an extrovert child? Or somebody who is reserved and focused, is he or she is a slightly more introvert, who can put in hours and hours of reading and make sense out of it, right? Is my child a very logical thinker? When they make their decision, do they make very logically, or do they make an emotional decision making? Basically we are trying to see here whether the decision making is driven by their mind, or is it driven by their heart, right? He or she is an organized person, or they're very spontaneous in what they do, right? These are some of the things that you need to look in your child, right? When you can get answers to these 5 questions, that means you're ascertained your child's personality. There are careers which needs a person who will look for facts, right? Well, there are careers which want somebody to look at future possibilities, right? So when you are aligning career path for the child, you got to make sure that the child who is looking at future possibilities is not given the role of looking at tangible data. Then they freak out, right? I can't put an introvert child to do sales and marketing. He or she would not enjoy doing that. Right? These are some examples that I can give, but it needs a deeper discussion. If you had to sit back, think through, and this is not an overnight task, right? Parents, it does take you a year or two, because overnight you cannot look for these attributes in your child. You need to indulge your child with multiple activities to arrive to look at these attributes in your child, right? The next one is the values. What kind of values is your child looking from the career path that he or she is choosing? They like a competitive kind of a role. They like a challenging atmosphere, challenging, a high pace atmosphere. They look excitement in their work, right? Uh, these are some values that they look at. Some might look at, some might not look at, right? And then we are talking about, okay, some people say, I want freedom in my work, in the work that I do. I don't want, my manager to keep interfering and things like that. Look at that. The moment if you are talking about freedom, the first thing comes into our mind as we parents are freedom. If I give it to him to do his project, never the project will get completed. That's the first thought that runs in our mind, right? uh, Whenever you are doing this activity with your child, uh, please do it with 0% bias, no judgment calls in your head, right? The moment you have even 1% of bias or a judgment call in your head, please, don't do it independently. Take an help of an external expert and then do this activity. Thirdly, we should look at career interests, right? What is my child's interest? The very natural interest that all of us have, day in, day out, all our lives that we could do, and we still don't get feel bored to do those activities, right? Those are kind of career interests. You need to identify those career interests. And lastly, what is the learning type, right? Each child has a different learning type. Is my child a visual? Does my child look at something and then learn? Does my child an audio learner? Audio learner is somebody who will hear, even an audio tape or a lecture, they can hear and they can learn. Some of the children will ask you, you read. They'll ask their parents, Mama, Papa, you read this for me. And they can, store that what you have read in their heads, right? The third one is kinesthetic learners, right? Kinesthetic learners are people who would like to, perform and learn. And a lot of research based learners they are. The last one is read and write, right? The read and write are people who would like to read and read for hours and make their own notes. That's when they like to understand the concept or whatever that they are studying. This is largely helpful to identify because most part of the time we parents guide our children the way my learning type is. We always say, you studied this, right? Practice 3 times, then you will remember it very well. But that's my style, right? It's very wrong to say this is how you need to study, because please identify what is your child's learning style and accordingly give them the strategies to learn. And we pick up this attribute, that's because a large number of children are in the space of 10th and 12th grade, right? So there is at least another 5 or 8 years of education that is available for the child to do. Hence this is one of the very key attribute in, or the one of the approaches that we use to make a career choices. Lastly, skills and abilities form a very important key stuff in making this decision. Right? What is that? If a child, ideally these are all some of the skills and abilities that needs to be looked at. You cannot suggest your child, say he or she is about 60% or 70% in their 10th grade, and if you were to, tell your child crack JE advanced, maybe that's a very difficult task for the child to do. You need to identify what is your child's strengths and abilities. Based on that, pick what is appropriate for them. Having uh, the moment you keep humanly unachievable tasks, the child will get demotivated very fast, right? At the same time, if you are all at the notion saying, typically I'm giving you examples of the conventional career, which is engineering. My son will study for JE main and he will crack every other, or he will attempt every other competitive exams. For example, he will pick up Manipal entrance exam, he will pick up the state CET exam, he will also pick up the VIT Vellore Institute of Technology exam, and he will also write the JE main uh, competitive exam. No, it does not work that way. The moment you should have a strategy when you are picking a particular competitive exam, it is as much as if you look at out of the 100% responsibility that the child has to succeed in a particular career, 80% is the child responsibility and 20% is your parents' responsibility. Please understand that, right? Why? Because a lot of strategy needs to be put in place before your child embarks on that journey. And that 20% of strategy comes from you parents, right? Each of these competitive exams, the patterns are different, the preparation methods are different. Hence, a lot of thinking needs to go before you tell your child, this is what you got to be. Right? This is the multi-dimensional approach that you can use and then make a career path or decision or a choice. Arun, how are we doing on time?
We could, you can continue.
Yeah, I would like to run this quiz for our audience, which is a career quiz. The following are the names. I'm going to ask this question, and the responses can come in the chat window, audience. The following are the names of exams for entry into the course of which profession? CLAT, LSAT, ILAT. Is that for A, architecture, B, law, C, medicine, D, hotel management?
I think by and large, the majority understand it's law.
Law.
There are a few exceptions though.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, the right answer is law. The second question is, if you are studying history, then which of the following careers are you least likely to choose? A, curator, B, Indian Foreign Services officer, C, archaeologist, D, actuary. Varied response. C, actuary, Indian Foreign Service, B, actuary, curator, B, that is Indian Foreign Service. Okay, all right. The right answer is actuary. Actuary is a science study. As much as it is in the commerce, it is a science study. It has got maths and statistics. All right. The next question is, to become an IAS officer, one must have a postgraduate degree in science. A, yes. B, no. C, maybe. A large part says no. Yes. You don't have to be a postgraduate, and any UPSC is stream agnostic, like we just discussed. You just need to be at an UG level, right? And you can apply to write the UPSC entrance exams. And the fourth question is, R. Balki, who has made films such as Pa, Chinikam, and Shamitar, is from which industry? Advertising, A. B. Business management, C. Music production, D. Theatre. theater, advertising, theater, advertising, yeah, yes, theater. Yeah, the right answer is advertising. The last question, what subject combination in class 11 should you opt for to pursue biomedical engineering? A, it is physics, chemistry, bio, math. B is physics and chemistry remain standard. B is bio, home science. C is math, computer science. D is math and electronics. A, B, A, yeah, okay, A, C, A, yeah, A. Yeah, A is the right answer. Yeah, the moment it is engineering, right? Math is a default subject. And because it is biomedical, right? It is around the bio industry. It can be biopharmaceutical or biomedical, right? It is around the bio as a subject. So the right combination is PC, which is standard, and bio and math. Ideally, how do you get started? Basically, we do a kind of assessment, which is assess all the five methodology that we talked about, right? The multi-dimensional methodology, which is we do an assess, followed by a one-on-one counseling session for about 2.5 3 hours with the parents along with the child, and of course a follow-up session. This is about 4 hours per child, and of course the guidance that is required for children start having career guidance requests, or their ask starts as early as 8th grade, and at different levels their ask or their requirement for guidance are at different things, right? So this is something that we have to help you around. Now I'm open to questions. Please go ahead.
Can I opt for commerce with maths to be an architect?
Current education system, it will be difficult because the entrance exam that is there for architecture, right? Bachelor's in architecture will not help you do that. So physics and chemistry are two papers. It will still have questions around that. So it's important to pick up PCM for your architecture course.
This one is, ma'am, I wish to become a civil servant, but my parents want to keep my options open as there is an uncertainty in UPSC that we clear or not. So they asked to opt for PCMB, and the dilemma goes that we should opt for arts, humanities, so that so what should I choose, keeping in mind that I am comfortable in all the subjects?
If your, again, depends what is your backup choice, right? If you are referring to UPSC as your plan A, and if that does not go very well, or if you don't clear UPSC, what is your plan B, right? If you're looking at something around the PCMB careers as your plan B, which can be a switch immediately, right? As I mentioned, UPSC is a stream agnostic career. If you're an engineer, you still can be an UPSC officer. If you're a doctor, you still can apply for UPSC exam, right? So it again depends what is your plan B option based on that, you should pick up whether it is PCMB. Is any of the careers that we talked just now around that? Then yes, it does not stop you from looking at that option as PCMB.
One question for all those who are typing in their questions in the chat window. Can you please use the Q&A instead? We would be taking up questions only from the Q&A window, right? So, nanotechnology also included in PCM?
Yes. Again, it depends, right? Nanotechnology, a large part of it is PCM.
This one is from someone who's wanting to get into defense. Can I enter defense if we become aerospace engineers?
Yes, you can.
Is this position open for, it's only for the gentlemen, or the ladies can also apply? Post-engineering.
Today, most of the roles are as no gender specification. So rather, most of the organizations or a large part of communities are coming together to encourage women into this space. So please go all out, irrespective whether you are a male or a female or the third gender. Nothing stops.
Soha, I'm giving you the speaking rights. If you can just raise your hand, please. Your question isn't clear. Soha Sheikh, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So I wanted to ask you that if we like biology and mass communication and journalism, so what can be a better stream for us?
If you like mass communication and journalism and bio also, right now, of course, you can go the liberal education path where your majors can be in journalism and your minors can be around bio, and you can be in the journalism space around the biotechnology space or the pharma industry space.
Ma'am, and also is there any means when we are opting for education abroad, so what are the things that we should look for?
Education abroad is a different topic, Soha. It again depends what is your percentage, what kind of investment, where you want to study. A lot of other things are involved. So maybe I'm not the right person to give you that information. Maybe you can write to Arun and we should be able to help.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so Kanksha asked this question: what should one do when she or he does not have particular aim for career in future?
Career in future.
I do not have a particular aim, so how do I handle it?
This needs a deeper intervention when Kanksha is saying that he or she has no aim for future. I would like to maybe get into a little more deeper discussion in terms of why and how.
According to the new norms, and I love when these kids are asking about the new education policy, can I take biology as major and psychology as a minor? I think you've answered this question already, just in case.
Yes, you can.
Management is IIM. I don't know, Krishna. What's your question? If you can raise your hand, I will give you the speaking rights. I want to be a maths lecturer. Should I take science or commerce?
If you want to specialize in maths, then ideally it should be science. because in commerce it's going to be very it's called basic math. It will not have the depth in the math, but if your interest is math, ideally it should be science stream to start with.
Can I move on in police line with commerce with maths stream?
Is asking about police.
I want to get into. Can I get into police?
Yes.
Services with commerce with maths.
Yeah, you can get into police force with commerce background. Yes, and
You can get into
commerce you do have basic math, so you can nourish and cherish your interest for math along with the degree in.
this one is a difficult one. Which engineering is the best? Software, mechanical, electrical.
Every stream currently has the width and depth in terms of which is best. It depends what is your strength, right? What is your personality looking like, right? Some of us are very good taking up a dusk kind of a job, which is very intense in terms of, say, a CS guy. 90% of his or her time goes in their in around the four walls, whereas the mechanical engineer, his life is slightly more different, right? He or she needs to use the physical abilities to do some of their jobs, if not a large part of it. I will say a mechanical engineer's life or an automobile engineer's life is at least about 10-15% is physical work, and the rest of it is intellectual, right? So it depends what is your interest and what is your personality looking like. So based on that is what you got to make this decision. But in terms of which stream has got more importance or huge ask, each one has their ask. Industry is quite big for each of them.
I'm good in maths and science, so what should I take?
Maths and science, like we just saw, right? There are careers which are purely math, which is engineering intense degrees. And science is again B, C, and B. So if you are keen around the space of bio, which is the medical science fraternity, or if you want to get into some research careers, right, then there were careers which we talked about, pure science careers, which are research based. So you can look at research. It again depends. I'm somebody who could sit through hours and hours of reading. I'm somebody who could do that, right? Or then maybe a research kind of a career. I am somebody who's a very invention kind of a personality. I would like to keep thinking and looking at, what new can I build? What new can I think of doing? That may be an engineering space degree, right? It depends what is your interest. With M&B, there are a lot of options. Maths and science, a lot of options.
Which engineering gets the highest pay package?
Every profession or every engineering degree has a good pay package, right? Again, how big do you make it? Depends on you. I would put it up this way. Today, we have computer science, right? Look at the science. A large part of people say, if you're an engineer in a tech company, then you're paid highly. But the layoffs are also likewise, right? If you were to be a mechanical engineering, say again, where did you study from? That plays a very important role. And what was your percentage? All of that plays a key role in where do you go, how do you make your future opportunities. Money is there. Every stream in engineering pays well. How big can you make it is something which is within you.
I think, we unfortunately do not have much time on our side right now. Uh, for many of us who are looking at, their respective strengths in particular subjects and choosing a career, uh, that might not be the best yardstick right now. If you actually look at, I think career selection goes much beyond, guys, about being good in a particular subject or not being in a subject. And I think that's what Vijay emphasized for a large part of the session, right? It is not just your career interest. It goes much beyond factors like what are you looking at from a job, or your value systems, your personality, and your aptitude, right? Only when you're able to learn something very easily and perform it well, that you're able to excel. And when you excel in a career, money follows. If you are assuming that you will get into a high paying industry or a job, and by default you will make more money, unfortunately that's not something which has happened till now, right? Now please understand, when Vijay was talking about how the world of work is emerging, a lot of these careers which were relevant today, or some of the most high paying careers, did not even exist when I and Vijaya were entering the world of work, or were entering the industry. And there is no guarantee that by the time you finish your education, some of the today's best careers, or the so-called high-paying careers, would continue to be as lucrative as it is. If you choose your career direction well, if you choose a career based on your strengths, your likelihood of doing well is higher, and that's probably the recipe for you to do well in life, right? Don't choose a career because it's in. Choose a career because it fits into your scheme of things, right? Choose it based on your strengths. So thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you for having us here, Arun, and thanks, wonderful audience.